Hi, everybody. Glenn Curry along with Josh Kirnie here at the H2O Studios, high above, actually on the second floor of the public square, where you're looking at right now live in downtown Watertown. And there I am here at the conference table in the most beautiful podcast studio north of the Thruway, along with my business partner in crime. I say that a lot, Mr. Josh Kirnie. Josh, we are here to talk about what today in the Get Real podcast.
Get Real podcast.
I'm sorry I didn't say that from the outset, but this is the Get Real podcast.
This is the Get Real podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how aware you are of what's happening around you with the people around you and how they affect each other and affect you and what's going on around you. And a lot of people aren't aware of what's happening around them.
Right.
There's this one scene from the TV show The Office where Steve Carell is running around Rockefeller Center looking for someone famous to take a picture with, and he bumps into Conan O'Brien, and it just says, "Get out of my way! I'm looking for someone famous."
Right.
And it's really that we're talking about. The first steps, the early steps in being able to read what's happening around you and behave accordingly. This shouldn't be, but it is a superpower with what's happening around today. Now, you notice that a lot of people are obsessed with what's happening with their own life, and everybody's favorite subject is themselves. Now, this is something that I covered extensively recently in working some neurolinguistics and hypnosis out with our programs and with Scott McFall. Scott McFall will be on with us shortly in the coming weeks.
Right.
And he is known throughout the country as the people reading expert, being able to know what was happening in their past, and because of their past, their present, and what should happen if they don't make a change that they would, volunteer to make if they knew how it would affect them.
Okay,
positively.
so just so I can clear this up, he is not a soothsayer. He's not a fortune teller.
Nope.
But he's an insightful person where he knows that if he can speak to a person, get a good understanding of who that person, he or she is, he can figure out what led them to that very day where they sit in front of him. Is that correct?
Yeah, speaking to people would make it way easier than he shows it to be. What I'm saying is, I've seen him do this, and right now this might seem like something that seems unbelievable, but I've seen him be able to read somebody's past and their behavior and their filters, their information filters, the way that they filter information from 40 feet away. And then you're like, the first time I met him, I was like, no, there's no
he
way
can't do that for me.
And then the gentleman,
Not going to happen.
He read the gentleman.
Right.
He came over when everybody was in disbelief, and the gentleman almost verbatim repeated back to us what Scott repeated about him.
Wow.
And or told us about him. So it is that concise, and it's that, and people have that ability if they have their attention in a certain place. So sensory acuity, knowing what's going on with the people around you, having an idea of how they're feeling and where it started, and how your reactions or your actions affect them is very, very important in getting real.
So so Getting Real, part of the Get Real podcast. So you're in sales. Let's use that as an angle, guys. I've been in sales for a long time. It's important to know that the person you're selling to or trying to sell to, it's important to know what frame of mind they're in at that point. Is that a good way of looking at this, and how they are at that very moment before you make the sale? Let's
look at it the other way real quickly, because a lot of us, either way, you can't help but be in sales.
Right. It's true. Good point.
So when you're on the other side of sales, I'm thinking of one situation in particular that's really enhanced. So in its extreme situation, and that's buying a car.
Right.
So whatever's on the person's mind, if you're paying attention, is going to come out in what they're saying to you. So in a lot of situations, and not all situations, but a lot of situations, they're going to give you the least for the most profit they could possibly make.
Of course, yeah, sure.
And that's like 4 out of 5, maybe 3 out of 4 people that I deal with. Right? Unfortunately, on both sides, that's no way to make friends,
right?
And that's no way to make long-term profit. So the best people, and the way that we train people when we train salespeople, people that are in sales or PR, is you want to have a real heartfelt connection with somebody so you know what you can provide for them, and then provide it. So I was thinking, even now, I'm just picking up the phone and calling somebody. I've had dramatically different conversations with people in different positions when it comes to selling a car. And this is just recently. And I've decided not to buy the car, quite possibly because of these interactions.
Yeah, sure.
Even over the phone, there's absolutely no interest in exactly what I needed, except for in one case. And the conversation just never got started. It never went south because it was never there to begin with.
Right.
And a lot of times, it looks like these people, or it sounds like these people would actually do something drastic just to make the next
Just to
sale.
make the sale.
And then, it's funny, and you would probably this would probably make a total sense to people that are watching that are from the local area.
Right.
In the small town of Adams,
Yeah.
is where I had the actual positive reaction to somebody who wanted to be able to provide. And there was another gentleman too who's in Rochester, but it was really the gentleman in Adams that I had the real conversation with, and we just decided that it wasn't in the cards at that point. And now, of course, he knows, as many people would know in this situation, that when I do need something, I'm going to go right to him.
Exactly.
And I'll drive the extra 45 minutes to see him.
Sure.
Because Adams, if people don't know where Adams is, it's not close to anything.
No, it's not. Well, it's close to Watertown, and
Sort of.
and it's huge. So I think I know which dealership you're talking about. So that's good. Someone actually went out of the way to care about what you wanted.
A very, very kind man.
It didn't happen because for whichever reason. But the next time around, if your wife or someone in your family needs a car, you'll know where to go at that point going forward.
So when you have something on your mind and you can't clear it out and focus, when you fail to focus, that is going to come and be carried forth into the conversation. And no matter how good your intentions are, if something's happening at home that you can't get over, or you had something else happen in your day, if you just spilled coffee on your lap,
Right.
Or your boss yelled at you,
Right.
or somebody is cracking the whip and wanting certain numbers a certain way that doesn't fit in the way that you communicate, like a boss or a manager, then, I mean, it comes in all twisted, and it actually damages the way that a person can do business and have this connection with a prospective client.
Right.
Now, there is a cross section of people that do form relationships, and those are the people that are always going to benefit more than everybody else.
How so? Explain that.
Well, because it comes down to something that is a presupposition of NLP, of success language, of brain language. And that is when you dovetail an outcome. When you dovetail an outcome, it works out for both people, and both people realize it. And then every outcome that you have with that person is going to be pointed towards a dovetail. So it's going to benefit both people. So what a dovetail, if people aren't familiar with the term dovetail, it means that both sides are equally represented in the deal. And that's the number one goal.
For both parties.
Yeah, that's right. So again, it's much different than some of the things. And remember, a lot of people, they have fire under their feet.
Right.
You can't blame them completely.
No.
And there's one company in particular that's nationwide.
Car company.
No, I'm talking about media now.
Okay, gotcha.
That is just renowned in the Syracuse area for kind of not giving a level deal or screwing people over.
Interesting.
And it's a huge company too.
Right.
And they just don't make any bones about it. They're like, on to the next one.
Right,
Sorry.
sure.
Sorry it didn't work out for you.
Right.
We'll get
Sorry,
you next time.
statistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, those folks are put under so much pressure that is the climate that they think that they need to exist in, not realizing that there's so many talents and so many things that they have going for them. They could probably do many things that didn't include working for a company like that. And that's what you want to see. You want to see as many talented people or people that have a good head on their shoulders walk away from those situations, and then eventually, just because of the free market, which always exists, those companies will end up not being there anymore.
So we're talking about reading the room, so to speak, or reading someone that's going to have a level deal, that's going to have your best interest, like the guy in Adams.
Right.
Although when you're buying a car, you're not always going to have that experience. It could go awry. It can go in a bad direction, and most often it does. So what's the reasoning behind that? Are people bad salespeople, or they're just not sympathetic?
They're thinking about themselves.
Okay, but how can you think about yourself when there's someone in front of you that needs a car for their own needs? That's just sales 99 for crying out loud. You got to know that stuff.
Well, I hate to say it, but most people don't live that way. Most people's their favorite a person's favorite topic is usually themselves.
Yeah, true.
And here's what I'm asking for people today. If you just consider for 15 minutes today when you're watching this to step outside yourself and make sure that people benefit from interacting with you, just for that 15 minutes, you'll feel completely different. You'll feel it in your heart and your stomach. You'll feel your muscles relax. Your shoulders will go limp. And you'll notice that there's a different state you can be in that will allow you to more easily get your goal. You just got to let go of the tension and the need for control and the fear of not getting what you want. And eventually it will come to you. So you talk about reading the room, and that's a couple steps away, but that's still very, very important. Because if you think about it, we've all been in a room with somebody that you don't want to be in because they're tense, or their behavior might seem a little off, or they might be intoxicated, or you might have just shown up at a completely awkward time.
True.
You don't know what just happened.
Timing is everything.
It's not as if the rules change. However, you do want to make sure that everything is safe, everything is good for you, and everything is good for everybody in the room. So it's important to still form relationships with those people and maybe even put it on pause, or leave them feeling good about you so they don't come and do something like, key your car or scream at somebody that you love.
So we're talking about narcissism essentially here. We're talking about people that, I remember there was a joke in a sitcom years ago, and there was a woman sitting in an office place. And again, this is a silly show that probably didn't last more than a season, but it was a good line. It indicated a lot of things. She said, "Cynthia, did you hear what they were talking about?" She says, "No, they weren't talking about me." And I guess that's what we're in tune. We can see a bunch of images on any given day. We can hear conversations. We can have our boss talk to us. But unless it's about themselves, people just aren't paying attention anymore, Josh.
It seems almost like contagious. It seems like, because it could have been anything.
Yeah.
First, I got to say, I'm not qualified in New York State to use the term narcissism. So I believe I have a good grasp of what people say when they use that word, and I have to be very careful.
You have to be qualified to use the word.
Yeah, I think that's a clinical term. I just stay away from it.
I use it all the time. I'm not a doctor.
And
I don't play one on TV.
I use the term self-sorted, so that what they're doing is when they filter information, they notice how the information, which is, I just self-sorted a second ago. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
The information affects themselves. Right? So there's other ways, and there's a combination of other ways to focus on people and focus on information and focus on places and tasks and things that get you results, or things that have situations that have maybe appear to give you results.
Right.
And there is an inordinate amount of people that seem to self-sort. So what's great about sorting through others, sorting information as how it affects the people around you, what's great about that is it takes the pressure off internally. So if you can sort the information you're receiving, if you can look at a situation or feel a situation and notice how it affects the people around you, now in that moment and into the future, you only have so much conscious attention anyway.
Right.
So it takes the conscious attention away from what's going on inside of you, what's happening to you specifically. And that takes off pressure and takes off even pain, physical pain, or anxiety about the future, or stress about something that, keeps you from taking certain steps that came from the past, which is not any good for you anyways. So sorting and being able to jump back and forth between being able to check in to see how things are going with you, and then checking out and checking on how things are affecting others are all really important things. So it's actually a luxury from a lot of people. Now, I know two people very well enough professionally that I know what they've gone through and how they ended up learning this lesson. And it was out of necessity. So it was out of the fact that, like, hey, if I start focusing on myself, I'm going to be in excruciating emotional and physical pain. So one of these folks had a heart condition that was lifelong, and the other one had come down with a diagnosis for cancer. And there's so many things going on with them off and on medically that if they sat there by themselves and thought about what they're going through, they would be sweating bullets, because that's too much for people to handle nonstop. Right.
Sure.
When you say something like self-sorted or as you said, narcissism, folks that are that are actually doing that are just causing themselves an inordinate amount of grief. And they're doing it so they can feel like they're protecting themselves. So it's almost like a paradox.
Right.
So with these two gentlemen, when they started sorting information through others, it was almost because it gave them two things. It gave them insight as to how the people around them were reacting to the things going on, and it took away the attention that they would normally have that would give them an incredible amount of pain. So once you step out and step into another sort of information,
Right.
it's going to open up a lot of doors. And some of those doors I'm going to go over in a second. It's just something that you want to consider.
So, all right. So the lesson for today is that if we spend less time dwelling, I'm getting mixed messages here. Should we not spend enough time on ourselves, or are we spending too much time thinking about
I think
ourselves?
that as a group of people that I've encountered,
Yeah.
both here in New York State and in the Midwest and in the South and on the West Coast, I would say that people, yes, do focus on themselves too much. And sensory acuity is something that can't just be invented inside your own mind. So it's important to be able to see things outside of yourself, and that's what sensory acuity is. So being able to know what's happening in front of you,
Right.
and move from there. So depending on what you're doing with the folks in front of you.
Right.
I mean, remember, if you are watching this, I'm guessing you want to improve your life.
Yeah, sure. We all do. Some of us don't give a shit,
Yeah,
to tell you the truth,
some
Josh.
people don't.
Yeah, it's true.
Or don't think that they deserve to give a shit,
Right.
or
Right.
think that all is lost, and even if they give a shit, nothing's going to happen
No, that's
anyways.
not gonna
And
make a
those are
difference.
all those are completely false. So even a small change, a small alteration in things can bring an incredible amount of bounty to somebody's life.
Example. Last week you were talking, it was really cool. You were talking about just changing the furniture around, doing something different in your life. Obviously with the last 13 months, I don't know if the divorce rate is up, but a lot of us have learned a lot about ourselves because we've been cooped up inside. What we're talking about here, if you have a relationship, if you have a family, you can't always focus on yourself. It's impossible. If you did, everyone would hate you.
But they do. Oh, but they do.
So what are you talking about? What do you mean? Who's they? I mean, the family that...
Folks, people, in order, more often than not, are focusing on their experiences rather than other people's experiences. That's summation. That's summation.
Is this an American thing though, or have you traveled abroad? Would someone say from Germany, France, England, would they be as narcissistic as we are? So I have a sneaky suspicion that Americans, just the way they're perceived in elsewhere, are probably the culprits behind what we're talking about today, more so than other nations. No,
I wouldn't know. I know that it's different in pockets with the way people behave.
Yeah, sure.
Now, the opposite of this are people that appear to focus on others, right? And we have a term for folks that are in that situation in our industry, and that's placators. And now, when somebody appears to focus on others, what they're actually doing is, for the most part, most of the time, they're giving all their time and energy to others, so they don't have to focus on what's going on inside.
Interesting.
So they're actually doing it for themselves to begin with.
Okay, so it's still a selfish thing, but here's my example of that. Here in Watertown, we've seen so many cases of what I call the angelic syndrome, where a woman who's got her act together, she hangs out with the worst possible, maybe not the worst possible person, not a Charles Manson guy, but typically it's that angelic woman that can change that guy. Can change him from smoking or getting drunk or not being faithful and whatnot, and she gives everything. In some cases, actually allows him to sell drugs right out of his house, and we see that a lot up here. Is that an example of someone who's actually trying so desperately to help someone else's life, but at the end of the day, they're doing it for themselves?
If you want to talk about a lack of sensory acuity, those folks would probably be it, because what they're actually doing is reliving the same thing and dating the same people over and over and over
all
again.
the time. You're right.
And now, this is a bit different than what we're talking about, but I'm going to keep going with it because it's a really good question. In my experience and from what I've been taught, and it's something that we could touch on with Scott when he's on here, and we could even touch on it with anybody else we have on here.
Sure, of course.
Anyone else we interview. What you're going to find there is people tends to attract same. So people that have the same general step-by-step processes that created a situation in their background, and they have, as we say, a hole in their heart that matches up with somebody else's pain, they're going to attract each other, and the feeling they're going to get from matching up with that person is going to seem like it's love. Okay, but it's not. It feels good and bad at the same time. And that's what you get a lot. You have people revisiting over and over again something that they've been through or seen someone else go through.
Right.
It's almost like a legacy. And what folks would want to do is they want to change that. And then be able to experience what true love feels like and notice and compare and contrast what it felt like when they were, trading senses of abandonment or some other kind of emotional pain or senses of injustice. And notice they're not the same two things.
No,
right?
no.
So what you've got there is the way that we would deal with that is point that out. And a good way for people to get out of that, again, is stepping outside of themselves and their normal cycles by focusing on other people legitimately and keeping their balance at heart, and notice what's happening, and only then can they have the power to change it for themselves, and other people aren't going to do it for them. So sensory acuity is the key to all of these things. Now, when we talk to Scott, he's going to talk about reading people, and it's going to seem like magic. And I guess this is a really good introduction to that, because it's not magic. It's just when you have these things practiced to a certain extent, they start to develop new and more powerful results. And, the reason why we have repetition, the reason why we have a little bit of confusion and we have learning is because you can't just have everything at once, or else you wouldn't know what to do with it. So it's almost like sensory acuity builds on itself. The more that you do it, the closer and closer you get to being able to do things like change careers, right, to something that suits your needs, to be able to relate to the people that need you to relate to them, especially if they're somebody that doesn't communicate in a way that you would like them to communicate.
Sure.
Somebody that might seem nasty because they're in some kind of actual physical pain is what comes to mind. And we have a lot of that in New York State. A lot of people, we have a lot of adult children giving care to the elderly and their elder parents, and things aren't going great. So when it comes to being aware of things, then you can change the things that you need to be aware of. You can change your surroundings. And that's important.
It is important.
It's important if you want to enjoy yourself. Now, it also
If you want to live life to at least better than what you're living life right now, I agree with you.
If you think about it, anything that you want to change, if you make it smaller, if it seems smaller in relation to the things that you're watching in front of you. So instead of just having sensory acuity with you and you of me, because we're across from each other.
Right.
If there is maybe you had 15 or 20 or 30 people in your life that you would have constant awareness of, it puts perspective to things that you want to change in yourself. So it doesn't seem nearly as big or daunting. I mean, when you're sitting there staring at yourself in the mirror as close as you can, your head will look huge. Everything about you looks too big to even manage sometimes.
Right.
The way that I like to explain it is when you have something you want to change, you can imagine carrying bowling balls without the finger holes.
Yeah.
And you can do it.
Right.
But it's awkward.
Yeah, very awkward. Yeah.
So
sure.
if you were, before you put them down, if you were to see them from a bird's eye view from maybe 60 feet up, it would look like the size of marbles. Now, what's easier to manage, a marble or a bowling ball? And that's the way that perspective works. So when you're focused outside of yourself and you're looking and trying to feel, or in the moment where you can feel what other people are going through, and knowing that they're doing the best job that they can, it makes the things that you want to change about yourself, whether it's a new hobby or a new profession or new relationships, a new take on spirituality, a new set of circumstances when it comes to being able to help other people, then it makes those things very, very easy.
All right, so in your line of business, and we're talking to Josh Kirnie, who's in the line of hypnosis. This is all part of the suggestive world. And again, pardon me on my language.
I like your language.
Well, okay. So when you're talking about this, you just saw Scott. You're you're engaged with a lot of the things that you're talking about because you've been enlightened about all this. Although this isn't very new to you, you've been studying this from the beginning. For what you do, it's important to know what's going through people's minds. Is that what this is all about?
It is. It's not just important to me, though it is very important to me.
Yeah, sure.
And it's not just professional either. So, I mean, you'd be a pretty crappy hypnotist if you helped. I don't know. We have about 24 people. Maybe tomorrow we'll see about 24 people.
You will tomorrow alone. You'll see 24 people.
Yeah, from
Wow, that's pretty
I
impressive.
think my first client's at 9,
Wow.
and that's just a smoker follow up, and I'm sure they're doing fine. They're actually very easy to work with.
Yeah.
And then, I have a celebrity tomorrow. I just can't tell you who it is.
Oh my goodness! Up here or down in
in Syracuse.
Down in Syracuse. So you can't tell us who it is.
No, I'll let her tell you.
Oh, it's a female. Okay.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. She's doing really, really well too. So I'll start at 9, and we'll be done around 7:30 or 8,
Okay.
and we'll see about 24 people. I think maybe 24 people. I have to check.
Good.
And then again up here, we'll be seeing on Thursday. We'll see.
So you're not up here tomorrow.
No, we won't be.
You're down in Syracuse. Okay. So just to let everyone know, Josh has a clinic here in Watertown. You've had it for many years now. You're from Syracuse. You've had a lot of clients in Syracuse. Now you're going out to the Midwest to Kansas City. Have you had any headway there? Any luck so far?
We have a full day on Friday, and then we have some more people on Monday, and I think we're going to squeeze some people on Saturday morning.
Okay. So, and the reason why you went to, again, in as far as what you do, you told me something that was interesting. Kansas City is probably, 500,000 people, over 1 million people in the metro area alone. You're telling me that they don't have any people in your business out there to take care of, hypnosis for people who need to get rid of a vice, stop smoking, lose weight,
So
stop thinking about themselves?
So the way I would put that is that okay. No. The answer is no. So the thing
answer
is this.
no.
As society kind of mingles or kind of slides in a certain direction, which is what we were talking about earlier.
Right.
When it slides in a direction where they're only thinking about themselves, things become very easy. And I only speculate. I'm not an anthropologist. I'm not a sociologist, right? All I know is what I've seen, even in the last 10 years since I've been in the industry and seeing as many people as we've really been cooking with. So it's harder and harder to get people to level with these things. Hard is a weird word to use there, but it's the word I'm going to use.
Yeah, sure.
So it takes more. It takes more effort a lot of the time, not all the time. When you're in a place like the northern tier here in New York or in the Midwest, it's just a different feel to the society. And it's very easy to get people to mind what you're saying, noticing that they can see the results, that the literally hundreds of thousands of people that we've seen in our clinics and have gotten results and have them see themselves in those results and follow. And because of that and the way that we interact with them, follow our instructions. And if it's not the right fit, we let them go. So it's in a situation more and more every year where if you've got to be more and more refined with following the rules that work, following the process that works. And you can no longer get away with just expressing yourself through a cool job like hypnosis. You can't. I mean, you've got to be able to have a base of people that you've helped out, and you've got to be there to help those people out first and foremost, and let everything else fall into place after. Right? There's plenty of ways to be self-expressive, and being a hypnotist is not one of them. So what I see is people making up their own rules.
Yeah,
as if it was their show. And I'm not saying this is all the people in Kansas City, and I haven't met any of those folks. All I've done is I've called them and I've seen their websites, and maybe that might be there. If you've got a city like that, and it's tough to manage a big metropolis or metropolitan area. That's what I'm saying. It's not a comic book. So
we got the idea.
So, I mean, it's not easy for anybody. So you do have to have standards. That's why we have a very strict set of guidelines in our group that happens to be run by Scott. And he's created almost all the things that we follow or discovered all the things that we follow. And they've been proven to work, I think, over like millions of times.
Wow.
And I can't speak to what other people do. And I don't, there's a bunch of different ways to not be good at hypnosis. All of us have had to go through some of those things in the beginning. the people, the hypnotists and the neurolinguists and the clinicians that end up seeing the most people are the ones that follow the rules at work, that follow the rules and follow the system, and also do it for the folks that you're dealing with. So as I was saying earlier, remember, it becomes very natural to you when you can be the same person at work as you do with other colleagues, as you do on a podcast, as you do at home.
Right, sure.
So those things can relax you. You don't have to put up a front. And I'm not saying that, dealing with family is the easiest thing. It's actually the hardest thing.
Right, very difficult.
Especially when you got a bunch of kids.
Yes. You have 5, is that correct at the house?
That's right.
Yeah.
And that are constantly in a different orbit.
Yeah, sure.
It's almost like the solar system, right?
Right.
I still haven't figured out who the sun is. I think I think the sun is the beagle mix that we have.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the astral body that dictates what everybody does.
Ruh-roh.
The other day, it's funny. There's no lying in him, just like there's no lying in a 5-year-old. Like, you're going to get what you get, right? Even when they tell a fib, it's still, the truth is right there.
It's all in front of you. Yeah.
So
Very transparent.
The other day, I think it was the first day I was in Florida. I was on the sailboat. Training on a sailboat is a whole different level because there's no escape. The only way to escape is into the Tampa Bay where you'll get eaten by a shark.
Yeah, sure.
So you're not going anywhere, right? It's the best situation to be in.
You're like on Alcatraz in a way.
That's right. It's like you either change or you change. You've only got 2 choices.
Right.
So this little guy, he's a half Boston Terrier and half Beagle mix. And at some point in time, usually what they'll do is they'll run right from the back door into their area, their play area, right? Dog run. And all of a sudden, he's very quick. He took an extreme left, got away from everybody. And remember, we have a highly tuned athlete in the backyard at this time. Still couldn't catch him. It's like Rocky chasing the chicken.
Right.
So he ran up the street to the oldest pub on the west side of Syracuse. Yeah. We didn't know where he was, or they didn't know where he was. I was out of town.
So he got loose.
He got loose, and he ran in the back door of the pub.
Wow.
And he ended up becoming their mascot for the day.
Oh, my goodness.
So they started feeding him lunch meat.
Right.
So he was just sitting around, hanging out with all the patrons. And because of the current restrictions, there's a lot more day drinking, I've noticed, in Syracuse.
Yeah, I guess so. By the way, did the dog, did he have to wear a mask to get into the pub? Sorry, I had to say.
I'm not going to say the name of the pub, so I can tell you this. This pub that I'm speaking of is owned by civil servants. There's no way anyone's wearing a mask in that pub.
Oh, God, no. Are they police officers?
I don't know how. No,
police officers?
No, they're not police officers. I don't know how everyone's not dead already.
Because it's gone. It's not there. It's not happening. I'm telling you, COVID's over.
I don't even think about it. So
I say so.
If you're going to have sensory acuity and you want to start with just 15 minutes, you can spiral it out to 20 or 30 or 2 hours or 4 hours and realize the more that you exist outside of yourself and really pay attention to and empathize and have sensory acuity with what's going on around you, it's much, much easier to make your life the way you want to make it and help other people get to that life as well. Now, I said the word empathy. A lot of you can just scroll down just maybe 3 or 4 clicks, I guess, or scrolls down right now where you see this, and you can walk right into Dr. Dan Burrow's podcast on empathy. And I would invite you to explore all of our messages to you in the MHS. All of our messages are going to help.
Real quick, MHS, what is that?
Master Hypnotist Society.
Okay, just had to ask.
All of these messages are going to lead you or tease you or cajole you or even irritate you into looking for more. Looking for more. So Dr. Dan is really tall. He's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Dr. Dan, what's his last name?
Burrow.
Okay, so the words, say it again. What the 2 term that we've been talking about?
Sensory acuity.
Sensory, again, I'm not writing this down. I should. Sensory acuity.
And it just means being able to use your senses outside of yourself.
And again, to me, it's something we do all the time. And again, I use the sales analogy because you got to know what you're dealing with. Sometimes you don't want to go in on a particular business on a Monday. I mean, these are things you go into as a cognitive experience over the years. If someone's got a busy plate after the weekend, don't try to sell them something on Monday. Although sometimes you'll need to sell them on Monday, depending upon what it's weird. But in the world of media, you're the last person they want to talk to. So that's one thing going into a room. And then you get in there and you realize that someone just you can hear it out in the waiting room. You can hear the owner of the place having an argument with one of his sales managers. Not a good time to sell things to someone at that juncture. But sometimes I still manage to get a sale out of it. But these are the things.
You're a nice guy.
Well, I'm a nice guy, but at the same time, you have to have some type of reading elements that are going to tell you, hey, this is not going to work out. But putting sales aside, people don't realize that they're so friggin' into themselves on a daily basis. We call it anthropocentrism. That's what I learned in high school, at least. We're so just absorbed with ourselves. And with social media and the me generation that started when you were born in the 70s, we haven't left that generation. So what you're talking about is very, very, it's prominent. And I don't think we're ever going to get rid of it, Josh.
Well, you can't get rid of it all at once. So it's a person to person. So I would say that, can you imagine the advantage you would have in these moments that you know that everybody else is thinking about themselves, and if you stepped out of yourself, what you could create in relation to other folks when you help other folks. I mean, think about the overall advantage you would have. Now, when it comes to sales, right now, we're thinking of doing this right now, and it takes a lot of time for us. And what I'm talking about is a Power Secrets of Sales Magic Neurolinguistic Sales Seminar.
Right.
And I was just thinking about doing this. I'm glad you brought it up. And the people that we mostly get from that are real estate agents.
Yeah.
And some pharma sales people. But it's mostly real estate agents because they only eat what they kill.
What does that mean? Explain.
That means that if they're going to eat, they're going to have to sell something.
Okay.
You know, they work for themselves primarily. I mean, they might work under a certain umbrella, but and I can assure you that the 10 or 15% of them that takes this leap and involves themselves in Power Secrets of Sales Magic, involves themselves in sensory acuity, and explores it and uses it to their advantage, and also lives it,
Right.
they are going to see everything that they benefit from, all their benefits in life, personal, financial, professional, multiply exponentially.
Nice.
That's one thing I can assure you of. And again, remember, most people, they have their heads straight down like this.
Right,
And they're
right.
looking at their phone.
Right.
Like,
Me.
who liked my post?
Look at all the likes I got. I got more likes than you.
Look at this.
Sorry. Yeah, I know. And they're driving at the same time. Go figure that out. That's a talented person. Jeepers. All right, so what do we walk away with here? I mean, here it is, our second Get Real podcast with Glenn Curry and Josh Kirnie. We didn't have Scott on today. He's a busy guy. You just saw him this past weekend down in Florida. You learned a lot. So now you're just filled with all this information. You want to share it with the world. So, a good assessment today about how people should stop thinking about themselves too much and start realizing, of course, in order to be successful, you have to show empathy and understand other people. You have to read the room and speak to people on a level where you're showing them that you care about what they're talking about as opposed to the opposite. Is
It's
that correct?
important to genuinely care about what's going on here,
Right.
rather than what's on in here.
All I know is, yes, am I a nice guy? I try to be a nice guy. But the one thing I've learned over the years, especially in media sales, is that before you get to the decision maker, it's usually that person in the back room or upstairs and whatnot. I notice a lot of salespeople would go straight to the decision maker, Josh, straight. To me, I had this whole audience before that. And not that I picked on them or used them but I was always interested in speaking to people. And when you get into the room and they see you walking in and they're doing something at the desk, or it's a car salesman in the middle of a deal, or he's got some time to talk to you, I'm going to spend time with them. And that, to me, I'm not doing that to be disingenuous. I'm really interested in what a person's got to say. And that has helped me out dramatically in life. So if there's anything I can, you just got to give a shit about what other people are doing in their life.
That's right. All the answers happen out in front of you.
Yeah.
All the answers happen out in front of you. Now, I would invite everybody here that does recognize that no matter who you are, you're a salesperson.
Yeah, we all salespeople. I agree.
Those situations Glenn was talking about, that's a really good way to make sure that you can find the right time to speak to people and cut down your margin of error.
Right.
If you can master sensory acuity, those are the last things on your mind because you can instantly engage with people and have the right situation ready for no matter what time of day it is or what's going on around you.
Right.
If you can engage and care about the person as you speak to them and connect to them and connect to the people around you, it doesn't matter if the guy just spilled coffee down his shirt.
Right.
You know, if you're comfortable enough with yourself to step outside yourself and engage with them, you'll get
I totally agree.
what they want.
Get Real Podcast, number 2 here on a Tuesday, the 13th of April, 2021. Everyone, where could we get information? Give us a phone number and an email, all that stuff that will be posted, but we need to hear from you.
Right, we're going to put it on the bottom of the screen. You can reach us at and Glenn at 315-783-7903.
There you go.
Very easy number to
It is an
memorize.
easy number. I agree with you. It's a very easy number.
You can reach the clinic at 315-432-1514 or 816-357-8778. You can reach me directly at director. You can send all your letters or questions to me at director at, excuse me.
Yeah.
You can,
That was his phone.
You can reach me at director at destinyhypnosis.com or just go on destinyhypnosis.com and fill out the form and the contact form, and we'll be with you shortly.
Awesome. Everyone, you got all the information right here on the post. It's either below us or above us, whichever social media platform you happen to be watching us on. But for everyone here at the H2O studio here in Watertown, New York, and for Josh Kirnie, say goodbye, Josh.
Goodbye, Josh.
He just took his headsets off, and we hope you have a good day. We'll see you soon here from downtown Watertown, New York.